as a manager, you're obviously not an instructional designer.
Correct.
And it sounds like from what you've done some ID work, but it wasn't really called ID work, probably.
Oh, no. Yeah, definitely the rough version of it at best.
So, but as a manager in a learning team, you do work with IDs and you have to interact with them and direct them, or at least make requests of them. What's it like to be on the receiving end of that? So if somebody coming in was going to be thinking about that as a career, how does a manager work with IDs usually, from what you've seen?
Well, from what I've seen, I guess I'll start with my personal experience and then maybe talk about the varieties I've seen. For me personally, I mean, when you come to the ID world, to me, you're dealing with artists, to some extent, even though even if they're not maybe graphically designing something, if they're designing a program. So I personally lean into that experience and lead with brainstorming, ideation, to get people talking and thinking differently about what are we really trying to solve for, and then what are the different ways we could do it. For me, especially, I think the role I played within that dynamic was really influencing others more so than the ID team of what we actually needed to get done across the business, and getting them to ante up resources outside of our group to provide the content and having that really, I guess that just driving a learning culture across all of our teams, because I knew I could lean in on the design team. Working with you and Monta, what an amazing experience. Both of you guys are such creative geniuses, and you just know how to break things down in a way that someone can easily pick something up and allow them to focus just on the most important parts. I think sometimes when I look at especially corporate ID work, it looks nice and pretty, but sometimes there's a pace that's missing that doesn't match the real world when it comes to internal colleagues and what they need. And it can be overly designed. And I think working specifically with you, leaning into figuring out, like, we don't have to spend 6 months to be happy with something. It doesn't have to be all our work. Collaborating with others and then curating that it can be a key to move faster. So I think for me personally, that partnership and having great instructional designers who would challenge the status quo and look at what time do we actually have? What do you need me to get done? Okay, well, this way, we can't do it this way then. And would help inform me of what I actually needed to get buy-in from our leadership team and what resources we actually need. Because I think our team especially, we worked differently with our collective internal colleagues when you compare that to kind of our client-facing work and the design and format behind that. So as a leader, I just tried not to squash on any of that. I think it can be very easy to squash creativity if you're not thinking of the big picture. And if you ask someone to do more with less, you have to be open to any expertise they have and how can we actually get that done, and not get so obsessed with things being perfect. I mean, if they serve the need and this thing's only going to be around for 6 months, why would we spend 6 months designing something that's then going to be, expired by the time people actually get to use it?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that.